In this lesson, what we are going to do, we are going to extend our circuit breaker. We have in the past video what we have done. If you have not seen the circuit breaker video, you can go and watch that and then come to this video. That would be very helpful because there I have taught you about this circuit breaker in action and what is the different states of circuit breaker, this open, closed, half open, everything. Okay, so if you'll be coming from this video, then that would be helpful. Now in this video, what we are going to do, we are going to do some more work. We are going to add, you can see, we are going to add a retry mechanism. Okay, we're using Resilience4j, and we will understand what is resilience and why Resilience4j, something like that. Okay, so what are a resilient system? First we will understand the basics, like what is resilient system. Okay, so resilient means, you can see, tough, you know, root, something like that. So resilient systems are designed to withstand, adapt to, and recover from failures, malicious threats, or unexpected disruptions, ensuring continuous operations and minimal service interruption. In a layman word, I would say a system, if a part of an entire application is failing, then entire application should not be failing. There should not be cascading failures, right? One microservice is down, then the other microservices are down, something like that. There should not be cascading failures. Like if everything is dependent on our microservice, I understand that the response is important, but there should be some fallback mechanism. The service should respond in that scenario also if a microservice is failing. Cool. So that kind of system is known as resilient system. So that's why Resilience4j is there, right? Resilience, the name is taken from here only, like Resilience4j creates a resilient system. Cool, that's why Resilience4j. So we are going to see retry circuit breaker. We will also touch this time also, but what we are going to do, implementing retry. Okay, so we will touch both retry and circuit breaker in a resilient system. And cool, so yeah, we got the theory part. Okay, and what is retry? Retry is basically a mechanism of a request when service fails. Then suppose, let me go to the diagram, look here. Suppose here we have user service and payment service, and payment service is down. Okay, it is not up and running, and a request comes. Client sends some request via postman or something, and then if this service is down, this request should not, when this request will hit on for the payment service, it would not get any response because this payment service is down. In that scenario, after some time, what will happen, since this request is kind of not getting response, right? So after some time, this request will again be retried. Okay, this should be again be retried. Once again, if payment service is not responding, then again after some time there would be some configurations, we would see that, but after some time again it would retry. So it will retry in a mechanism. There are different mechanisms how we can configure retries, but suppose every 1 second it retries, then after every 1 second from user service, a request will go to the payment service. So this is kind of retry mechanism. Like if a request is failing, so we should retry it after some time. When service is up, it will get the response, and then we can work with that particular response. Cool. So retry is important, but we should also consider or keep in mind that a lot of requests should not be coming, so that there can be a kind of herding on the payment service, right? So we should avoid too much calls. That is also we will see. But retry, I hope you got the concept. Retry is just trying multiple times for output or for response from a service which is not responding currently. So this is our retry. So the concept retry, we got it, right? And circuit breaker I have explained in the previous video. Go and find that. We will touch this also. What is this circuit breaker? Okay. Cool. Now let's see how to implement retry in using Resilience4j. So for that, what we have to do, we have to go to our class. I will show you one by one. So first, let's go to the configuration. Here you can see it. I can show you again the configurations. You can see here we have Resilience4j circuit breaker. This is the configuration for circuit breaker. And for retry, here you can see this is instances and then payment service. Okay, so payment service is going to be here. Payment service, the name of the service, which is, it is kind of instance actually, not the name of the service. The retry name, instance name is payment service. We can give it anything. Okay, we can give it anything. And there is a scenario, there is a mapping actually. The mapping should be like when we are using retry, in that scenario the name should be matching. Suppose here I write xyz, then this name of the instance is here only, so this name should be xyz. So this kind of mapping is there. And then max attempt is 5. Okay, and then you can see wait duration is also there. Cool. And wait duration is 1 second, so after 1 second it is going to retry. And maximum how much attempt it is going to make, it is going to make 5 requests. And wait duration is 1 second. After 1 second it will fire another request to the payment service from user service. This is going to be repeated 5 times. But here you can see one configuration is here, enable exponential backoff is equal to true. So what is exponential backoff? It is very important actually by the point of interview also. And you can see the next configuration, exponential backoff multiplier is equal to 2. Cool. And then retry exceptions, you can write the exception which is expecting. If it is runtime exception, you should write it here. It should match actually with the returned exception from the retry. Cool. If do not want any specific, then you can write java.lang.exception, which is kind of super class, right? After you can pass any throwable exception basically. So now let's understand what is exponential backoff. Just let's see the name, exponential backoff. Backoff is like after how many time it is, how it is going to hit the retry. Okay, so exponential means up 2 to the power something, right? So here you can see we have multiplier of 2 and wait duration is 1. So suppose first request sent from user service, let me show it here. Here it is. Yeah, when first request comes, then it retries as suppose 1 second, then second request would go on 1 into 2, right? Here multiplier is 2, so 1 into 2, so after 2 seconds it is going to hit. So it will wait and wait for 2 seconds and then send another request. So second request would go on after 2 seconds. Now the third request, it is not going to fire after 1 second. It is, since it is exponential, so it is going to fire after the last one was 2 and then 2 into 2, which is 4 seconds, right? The multiplier is 2, so exponentially it is going to grow, right? E to the power x, something like that. Just here it is going to be 2 to the power. Okay, so this time third request, how it is going to be, it is going to be hit after 4 seconds, right? 2 to the power, you can see 2. So third request will go after 4 seconds, and then it will not go again on 5th second. It will wait for some time. Maybe our payment service is still not down, right? So we do not want to overload the request. That's why we are waiting. We are exponentially waiting for time. We are kind of having some jitter, right? We are not directly finding every second. We are not throwing the request because service is down and it would take some time. So what we are doing, we are avoiding kind of sending too much request. Cool. Once the service is down, service will be up and running, then the response would come. So this is exponential backoff multiplier. So the fourth request will go after 4 into 2, which is 8 seconds. it would go something like 10 seconds, right? Not 8, not 10. It would 8 into 2, which is 16. So 2 to the power something it would go. So this is exponential backoff. Exponential backoff is basically retrying after a time which is exponentially growing. Cool. I hope you got this exponential retry. So this is just to avoid the too much request, so that if payment service is down maybe 1 minute, why need to waste time if it is going to take 1 minute to up the service, right? So now do not go to this rate limiter, we will come to that later. So now let's see how retry is implemented in using Resilience4j. So for that, this dependency we have used, this is important one, but other than that we need retry. This is an extra dependency, Resilience4j / retry. This dependency is important. Cool. Once this dependency we got, after that you can see our server is running on port 7070. Okay, now let me show you the classes which I have. First let me to go take you to the application. So here you can see I have simple things, Spring Boot application, and then I have @bean, and this is a REST template because I'm making a blocking request. It is not a web client, it is just a blocking call, not non-blocking. Cool. So look here, there is an important annotation which is used for enabling retry. Enable aspect j auto proxy. This annotation is important. Okay, this is from AOP, I think. From the context annotation. Okay, this is normal annotation, but AOP plays an important role in RateLimiter. Okay, the proxying the object and handling that. So proxy would come here. This is a very good term. We will go also around the proxy, how this proxy handles or intercepts a request, and then retry happens. Cool. And other than that, let me take you to the controller. You can see this controller is very simple. We have request mapping, user, and then call payment. And this user service is having a simple method which is just calling call payment service, nothing else. And you can see into the user service we have just AutoWart REST template, and then we have retry service. We will see into retry service what is written there, and then I have moved some methods from the previous call, from the previous video. So you can see there would be some changes here. Earlier all the logic of get payment and circuit breaker were here only, but I have moved the circuit breaker everything in the retry service. Okay, so now let's see retry service. Here you can see we have retry service. Cool. And the important methods first I would try to show you. You can see this is the normal method get payment, which was being called from the controller only, service only. So this is the service and it is being called from the controller. So this is the flow from this to get payment, and get payment method you can see REST template object is passed here. Just it is going to hit our this endpoint which is written in payment service. We will see the payment service also. Now look here, the circuit breaker, this annotation is very important, @circuit breaker. So this enables the circuit breaker. Okay, Resilience4j circuit breaker, which is there. You can see the different context, actually different states of circuit breaker. You can see closed, open, and half open. Cool. Now let's see the fallback method. So here you can see fallback method is payment fallback. So this method is fallback method, and after retry happens, then after retries happen, then this fallback method would be called. So this fallback method is, you can look here, it is having just a log inside fallback method, and then return fallback trigger, just to confirm like fallback is triggered, payment service is down, we are simply returning this method. This method is the fallback method. Cool. So if everything is working fine, then response would be returned from whatever is coming from the localhost/payment. Let me show you this payment API, localhost 707, then payment. Here you can see I have a simple payment controller. This is the service. First let me show the service. You can see this is the simple service, and then we have a simple payment controller. Here do not look for these right now, just focus on this method which is we are calling on from the endpoint. Look here, the endpoint was 7071 slash payment. So slash payment you can see, and then we have get mapping. So this get method is going to be executed. This is going to be matching with the URL, right? So this here you can see we have simple payment which is generating random number less than 15. Actually I can make it some more number so it can fail multiple time actually. So let me have it so that it can fail multiple times. Actually I want it to fail, right? So that circuit breaker can go in different states. Okay, now just logging random amount whatever it is. If it is less than 7, we are breaking we are returning exception. Okay, if exception is occurred, then the request would be failed, and from payment service to user service, what would happen? From payment service to this user service, exception would come. Okay, when exception would come, then it would be failed, and then circuit breaker will consider it so that it can be come into open or half open state, whatever states it would come, it would wait. Okay, now this is simple method, you got it right. And then this is the method which is failing every time, and this is a success method which is successful every time. Cool. So this is only to elaborate the different states. I will consider it. If we want every time it to fail, then we will call this endpoint slash payment slash fail. Cool. So this is simple payment controller, nothing more. Cool. Now let's see how if retry is working or not. Okay, so let me show you one more configuration important to that, that is retry configuration. Here you can see I have a simple configuration class retry logging config. What it is going to do, it is just, you can see retry registry is there, and we have inside init method after post construct. Basically once bean is created, after that what it is going to do, it is going to do retry on which service it is going to retry on payment service, and which this is the name of the instance. This is not this name of the payment service, not this service. This is the name of the instance which is provided in the configuration. You can see here where it retries this instance, right? Retry instance and the instance name. So this is going to be the name of the instance. If you put xyz, here should be xyz. Cool. Now here you can see retry.get event publisher dot on retry. We are doing something on success. We are returning success after retries. If it is failure, we are returning failure. Cool. And let's see what we are doing here in the retry. We are simply doing attempt get number of retry attempts. How many retries have been done? Cool. So here in the configuration, if you see max attempted 5. So maximum 5 times it is going to retry for a particular request. Cool. Once 5 requests are reached and the response is still failing, or the payment service is not up and running, then only circuit breaker will come into role, and then circuit breaker will toggle itself from close to open, open to half open. We will see that. Okay, just right now we are focusing on retry. Cool. And here we are calculating the exponential backoffs. If you remember that exponential backoff, what we see, math dot power up to attempt -1, so it is 2 to the power n -1, something like that. Okay, just a simple calculation, exponential backoff. We are calculating it manually, and then we are printing simply a log. retry attempt. Here you can see attempt, the number of attempts it would get, and then wait time, how many times, how many seconds. Here you can see seconds it waited. So this is the wait time. Cool. So this is our simple retry logic. Cool. So what are the important things which we should consider? We should configure here. You can see, you can also leave this, it would work. It's not, it's just I wanted to show you the retry attempts and these things. That's why I have written this. If you do not write these entire class, that would also work, because this annotation is important only, retry annotation. And then in the application you need this @enable aspect JS auto proxy. You can disable it and then see if it is running or not, it is working or not. It would not work. Okay. And one more thing, in the pom.xml, what we need this dependency. Cool. Otherwise these dependencies would not come here. Cool. Now let's run this service and let's see for a try. So what I would do, here you can see payment services down for now. Let me just run this service also. Here, yeah, just let me little bit zoom it out. You can see Resilience4j retry insightful scenario is proxy bean interception on bean or class level. What does this mean? Proxy bean interception on bean or class level. How retry recognizes like it has to start, it has to try for retry. Okay, so what is this proxy bean? What does this mean? What proxy bean interception on bean slash class level? Okay, so what it means, like suppose we have this method, right? And if this method, this retry, let me copy everything from here. Uh, just let me put it, copy it here. Command X. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply do one thing. I'm going to write my proxy here only. Okay, and all my retry logic here only. So here you can see this, just let me remove this service for now, since we have written it here only. So here you can see in the same user class what I have done, I have written here the method in the user service itself. So what would happen here, you can see from get payment, it is going to here it is going to call, you can see the payment controller of the payment service, and if everything goes fine, that is good. If some failure happens, circuit breaks, and in that scenario, uh, let's see for retry, fallback method should be triggered, right? But retry, if you see, just let me show you, restart it again. Let's check if retry would work or not. So you will see that retry is not triggered. We have not done anything, we have not removed anything, we have just moved our retry logic from retry service to user service, the same method and the same annotation, the same fallback method. Now look here, we are calling this one, this fallback method here from the method only. Okay, and we are calling it from the get payment. You can see here get payment method. Okay, from the call payment service. So from this method 1, suppose this is method 1, we are calling method 2 from this to this. Okay, so basically what we are doing, we are doing method to method call. Okay, from call payment service to get payment service we are calling. Now just let this server restart. Okay, now it is started. Now let's see if retry works, retry is triggered or not. Let's see just in the console. You can see here that what is happening. It is still running. What happened to it? Okay, you can see some exception occur, right? And you can see connection refused. And what is this connection refused? Request to payment. Okay, why it is failing? Because localhost this service is not working, right? This localhost payment endpoint is not running because we have shut down our application, I think. Yeah, our application is not running. This payment service is not running. So let's look to the diagram once again. If you see this payment service right now, this is not running and user service is trying to call it. Cool. Now just see the scenario. Why retry didn't happen in this scenario? What we did nothing. We did no changes, I would say, related to the logic. We had the same method, everything was there, but since after this request is failing, there should be retry, right? That's why we have written retry logic. If service request is failing and after failing, there should be five retries, right? As we have configured it here, retries should be five attempts should be made, right? But it is not retrying. Why? That is the scenario which I wanted to show you. This is the role of the proxy, actually. Proxy bean interception. So if you see what happens, let me show you. This is because this exception, what happens, the same guy has a problem. He was doing the same way. Let me show you here. You can see he had this create order method, and create order method he was calling from inside the method, just like we have. Now what happens in this case, method to method call, what happened, you can see this is because of proxy. This is not calling, retry is not happening because of proxy. When annotated with @proxy, @retry, a proxy instance of a class is created and is used. Of the class, proxy object of the class is created and used. The proxy work in such a way that calls from one bean class to another bean class are intercepted. Basically, class to class proxies are proxy calls are intercepted, and it cannot intercept calls from method to method within the bean class. So look at this line, and it cannot intercept calls from method to method within the bean class. So for retry to work, the proxy calls should be basically the calls should be from one bean class to another bean class that would be intercepted by AOP proxy. Okay, here comes this logic. If you know this annotation, actually where it is, this enable aspect AutoJ proxy. So what this does, basically the proxy works from bean to bean, not method to method. You can see it cannot intercept calls from method to method. So what is happening here, when we are calling from user service, you can see from this method to this method, when we are calling, this retry is not happening because it is not on class level, and proxy is not able to intercept this call. So to get it interceptable, what we have to do, we have to move it in a separate bean, right, or separate class. So what we have done, we had done earlier, we had moved it to a service bean, right? You can see in this class we had moved everything, and then retry was working. So this concept I wanted to tell you. So now let me move back and show you why how that is going to work. So this is again here. Let me remove this logic, fallback logic, where it is, payment fallback. Just let me remove this one and use retry service.get payment. Okay, now let me show you the same scenario is there. Payment service is still down. User service, we have moved entire logic of the retry on, you can see here on the retry service method. Cool. And everything is same. Let me restart this one. Same scenario, and now when we have moved it to a bean, then from user service, you can see from user service, you can see we are going to have this call, right? Get for object, and basically what we are calling from this service, you can see retry service we are calling from user service. So there is two beans, right? From proxy from one bean to another bean, the call is bean to bean. So EOP is basically the EOP proxy is able to intercept this call, and then retry would trigger. Retry would be triggered. So this one I wanted to show you. So just let me show you once the server is started. So you can see here 7070. Now let's see, the retry should be hit here. Here you can see, awesome, you can see retry is happening. So this bean to bean call is intercepted, and retry now the proxy via proxy, retry is now able to pull this on from the proxy bean, right? The call is now intercepted from this bean user service to uh, this retry service. So you can see here now retry is happening successfully, and here you can see this one is triggered, exponential backoff, this line is working fine. Cool. Now I hope you got this method to method bean call is not intercepted by a proxy. The call from bean to bean is, or class to class is intercepted. I hope you got this idea and this concept actually where it was this one. Hence the workaround would be to move the method to a different class, which I had done. Once the method is moved to a different class, the Spring proxy would consider the call from separate bean, and then it can intercept. So that's what it is doing. Cool. Now let's see another important concept where it is. Yeah. Now let's see here. Fallback method hits when declared at circuit breaker level, and in this case fallback method hits when declared at circuit breaker level, and in this case retry mechanism takes the fallback response as successful. So no retry. What does this mean? Just let me show you what does this mean. Let me pull it together, man. I have to do a lot of scrolling. Yeah, now they are side by side. Cool. So now what this line is saying, it is saying if fallback method hits when declared at circuit breaker level, and in this case retry mechanism takes the fallback response as successful. So no retry. What it means is, suppose in this retry, what is it is saying, if this fallback method, suppose this fallback method is written at this line, and retries here, okay? If this fallback method is written at circuit breaker, okay, so what would happen once retry, suppose this payment service is not running, so there would be some kind of application break, right? So the response would fail, and in that scenario what would happen, circuit breaker will fail, and then it will call for the fallback method. Cool. Circuit breaker would fail, and then it would call for the fallback method. But look here, fallback method, whether it is triggered by basically when it is triggered, it is returning some response, right? Whether it is failing or it is successful, it doesn't matter to retry. Retry considers a fallback method to be a successful. It considers, it looks like there's some response from the circuit breaker, okay? There is fallback method, something is some response has come, so retry would look into it, and it would consider it as a successful response. It doesn't know it is a dummy response or it is actual response, just it considers it as a successful response, so retry would not happen. Let me show you that scenario. I hope you are getting the concept. If suppose this circuit breaker in this is the circuit breaker level, like fallback method is written at this with the circuit breaker, so this is at the circuit breaker level. So if fallback method is written on circuit breaker level and fallback is triggered, then retry would not get triggered because this fallback method response is still a response, right? Whether it is dummy response or original response, it doesn't care. Retry doesn't care. It just consider it as a successful response and there is failure. If response is not there, if there is failure, some exception occur, something like that, then only retry is going to get triggered. In case of dummy response or actual response, retry would consider it as a successful response. So in that scenario, retry would not get triggered. Let me show that. Everything is same, just what we have done. Fallback method we have written at circuit breaker level. Now look at this, and you will be mesmerized with the output. Look here, payment service is down, right? We also know that our payment service is not running, it is down, so response is failing, and in that case you can see fallback method is triggered via, here you can see, via circuit breaker. Okay, so this fallback method is triggered but retry is not triggered. You can look here, retry, there's no retry. Cool. So just keep in mind there, whether the response is dummy from the fallback method or actual response, retry considered a dummy response or fallback response also to be a successful response, and in that case it does not retry. It only retries if some exception would have happened. Okay, suppose in the fallback method I return some exception. Okay, let me just do it here. Return exception. Okay, exception is not going to be triggered here. How I can trigger this exception? I cannot wrap it into Spring, right? Okay, so just let me do throw new exception, right? Just let me comment this and throw new exception. Okay, let's go. Return through new exception AX. Is my syntax correct? Okay. Okay, do not need to return, just throw would work. Cool, now we are throwing the exception. Okay, just let me see. This fallback is also failing now. Okay, let me restart. So this is throwing exception. Now fallback is failing, right? So actual service is down, so no response is going to come from payment service. So dummy response, which is fallback is going to be executed, but intentionally what we are doing, we are throwing exception intentionally. Okay, so when this exception would be thrown, then retry would consider it as a failed request, right? It would consider that payment service is not working, so it will try to retry. Actually it would retry, so retry should be triggered on exception case. Cool, just let's see. I hope you got the concept, like for whether a fallback method is returning dummy response or the actual response, the response is considered to be successful from the retry point of view, and then retry doesn't get triggered. But if we throw exception and it failed, so what would happen? Fallback is failing, so retry would consider the request to be failed, and it would try to get the response again, so it will hit from user to payment service, it will retry, and then retry would be triggered. So just see if retry is triggered or not. Earlier it was not triggered. Now let me show that. Okay, yes. Now retry should be triggered because first fallback would be coming and then it would trigger, and now after that there should be some retry. What is happening? Connection is refused with root cause unthrowable declared throwable. Actually it is not there in the retry configuration, that's why it is showing here. You can see here this exception is not there. Connect exception java.net.connect, this exception is not there. We need to add this also. Let me add it. A lot of new things are there. Cool. Now just let me see here. Actually this configuration is important. Java.net connect exception it is now getting, so retry would look for this exception, and these exceptions are important. Once it gets these exceptions, if it would match, then only retry would going to get triggered. These exceptions are important. Otherwise, if I would have simply written one exception, the father of all, that is java.lang.exception, then all the exception would be handled and retry would be triggered on any exception. So let me show that also. This is the new thing. Okay, we have java.connect exception. That should be triggered actually. Then we already have this one. So it should have been triggered. Why it is not getting triggered? Okay, let me try once again, otherwise I will go back. I will do something. Okay, fallback is failing, so it is not retrying here. Okay, let me make fallback as successful. I would not throw here then. Just remove this one. Control Z would be working fine. So what I can do, this was our fallback. Okay, so I'm not throwing here exception. What I can do, if exception is coming, suppose I remove this fallback, right? Suppose I remove this fallback, then it would look for the fallback there. What is happening here? Fallback, if it is exception, fallback, then retry should be triggered here, but somehow it is not getting triggered. Fallback, payment service, everything is fine here. Let me run it again. What I wanted to show you is that if circuit breaker retry mechanism takes fallback response, so no retry, successful fallback is hitting, then no retry it is happening. But if it is not successful, like we are getting some error at circuit breaker level, then only retry would happen. So this is the normal case. Here fallback would get triggered, right? And if we hit it, fallback would not get triggered. Sorry, fallback would get triggered, but retry would not get triggered. So here payment fallback method, it is coming here and it is not triggering the retry. Now what I want to see, retry to be working. So let me do one thing. It should fail actually. Why it is not failing? I can't find it. Let me do one more thing. Just it is here. Let me do the previous thing. If circuit breaker is there and there is no fallback method, okay, if there is no fallback method, then retry would happen. That was happening earlier also. So I don't want to show that. I want here only fallback method, very important. And if payment is failing, fallback is triggered. Whatever it is happening on fallback, it consider it as a successful response, right? So let me do it again here. Let me run it. Actually, it is not, retry is not considering the exception from this payment fallback. It is taking fallback to be successful response, whether it is exception or that's the, I think that is the way it is considering, whether it is exception or it is successful response. It is not considering exception also to be failed response. It is considering it as a response, successful response, like fallback is returning with some response, whether it is exception or not, it is considering like that. But the third scenario, if you see, fallback method hits when declared at retry level. When we declare it, this fallback method, not here actually, this fallback would not work because it is still on the same level, circuit breaker level. So retry would not get triggered. I think that is the reason. The reason is like this fallback method is executed whether it is failing or successful. Retry is not considering that. It is just considering like fallback method is triggered. So there's some response from the circuit breaker. That's why it is not triggering this fallback. So let me move it to this at retry level. And when we do it at retry level, what will happen? The third scenario comes into picture. Fallback method hits when declared at retry level, and in this case, retry mechanism takes the circuit breaker return with exception, and this exception response is considered as a failure by retry. So retry happens as expected only after it fallback is triggered. Now look at here. Now what we have done, we have written this fallback method in the retry level. So first it will go for circuit breaker, right? So circuit breaker would fail after multiple, you can see from the payment service, since it is down, so there would be no response from this, right? So in that case, what is going to happen? This circuit breaker would throw some exception, and that exception from the circuit breaker would be coming to retry, okay, and then retry will see that there is some exception from the API, which is from the circuit breaker, and if circuit breaker is failing in that scenario, it is going to retry, and it should retry after circuit breaker fails. So this is the case, I think. That is why it's this time it should retry, right? Awesome, awesome. You can see retry is happening. Yeah, cool. So retry is happening. Why? Because this time circuit breaker is failing. Circuit breaker has no fallback method, and it would, you can see final failure after retry. Okay, it is just logging from here only, nothing more. Final failure after this. Some error occurred from the broker, right? So you can see inside fallback method only after the exponential backoff, like multiple retries, and then fallback is triggered after the retries. So I hope you got these three things. Like first, proxy bean interception happens on bean class level, and then fallback. There are two levels on which we can decide fallback method. We can write fallback method. One level is at circuit breaker level, one level is at retry level. If we write at circuit breaker level, then what happens? Whatever happens, circuit breaker will trigger this fallback method, and fallback method, whether it is failing, whether it is showing some exception or not, in that case this retry is considering it as a successful response, like there is some fallback response, but it is not going to retry. But when we move the fallback method to payment level, retry level, then what happens? Payment service goes to here you can see this endpoint. It is going to the payment service, and then circuit breaker fails, right? Circuit breaker comes to open state. If we see the state of this should be open, right? Right now half open, because after 10 seconds it comes to open. Yeah, so this is circuit breaker basically gets into open and then half open state. And what happens here, this fallback is, there is no fallback, so exception occurs. So in that case what happens, this circuit breaker this retry starts retrying. Okay, it considers that circuit breaker has failed. Now my task is to retry the request again. So what it is going to do, it is going to retry multiple times, just like here 5 times it would start retrying. Cool. I hope you got these three concepts are very important actually. The leveling of the fallback method, whether it is circuit breaker, what happens when it is in retry, right? Now let me show this rate limiter. It won't take much time. For rate limiter there's not much configuration. You just need, let me show you the configuration. You need this dependency, extra dependency, rate limiter dependency from Resilience4j, and here you can see rate limiter. This instance is same. We have written here payment rate limiter. So okay, here you can see payment rate limiter, and the limit for period is 100, max 5 request. So here I can write 5 requests. I want to show you the rate limiting. Like after 5 requests there should be rate limiting, right? And then refresh period is 1 millisecond. Timeout duration is, let me put it at 3 seconds. So wait time limit if exceeded, or wait time for 2 seconds for, oh my god, let it put 2 seconds. So let's understand what is limit for period. You can see max 5 requests, only 5 requests are allowed. So if 10 requests or 8 requests, something like that come, here you can see per second, per 10 seconds actually. Here if I write 10 seconds, so in 10 seconds 5 requests are allowed. If in 10 seconds more than 5 requests come, then they would be rate limited. They would be rate limited, like they would have to wait for how much seconds? For 2 seconds they have to wait, then again uh, they would be allowed. Okay, the request would be allowed. So this is the configuration for rate limiter. Okay, now let's see here rate limiter. What we have to do, just we have to enable this rate limiter. Okay, and then we have some fallback method, we can write it. So after rate limiting we can show users some message. So here simply we can warn that log.one rate limit exceeded, and then https 429 request too many requests. Okay, 429 too many requests, we can send it, please try after some time. So something like that we can give it. So this is the simple configuration, nothing more, just the annotation rate limiter. And this payment rate limiter is mapped with this is the same instance name which was there here. You can see this one. So this is the same mapping. Okay, now Let me restart it and show you by hitting multiple requests how rate limiting it is going to do. Resilience4j rate limiting in action. Okay, and there are different algorithms actually rate limiting. I would not consider them in this video, but you can go and learn about rate limiting algorithms. There are different algorithms actually, token bucket, leaky bucket, kind of those algorithms are very popular one. You can go and understand those algorithms. There are 3 to 4, I think 4 algorithms. You can see here: token bucket algorithm, leaky bucket algorithm, fixed window counter, sliding window log. This kind of rate limiting algorithms are there. You can go there because for senior level interviews you can get these questions, right? So here you can see what we are doing here. Maximum 5 requests are there, and then window is, you can see 2 seconds window is there, and only 5 requests are allowed. So limit refresh period is 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds a new request would be allowed. So just let me show you the rate limit we have started. Just let me hit the request. Good. Now we have hit it one time, so payment is failing. You can see user service for HTTPS for too many requests. Okay, rate limit is started right now, only after 2 seconds. Let me have it some more duration. Okay, I think let me have the original one. Let me hit multiple for one request it should not be coming, right? For at least multiple requests I'm just sending. So here you can see HTTPS rate limit too many requests, 4 to 9 it is coming. So ideally what should have happened, like for 5 requests, once we hit 5 requests, after that rate limiting should start. So here you can see rate limit exceeded, retry service. Cool. So I think you can see the rate limit exceeded message here. Right, HTTPS 429, this request is returning to the postman or to the client, and he is happy with this rate limiting. So this is the rate limiting concept. Slowly and slowly, if you try, after 5 seconds it would again allow the request and it would not rate limit. It is still rate limiting. Every request it is rate limiting, so configuration is not correct, I think. But rate limiter is working, right? This rate limiter is working. Limit 5 requests, which is correct. Let me have refresh period to be 1, timeout duration 2. So rate limiter is working. We are not going to that. This configuration might be some problematic. Let me this service to, actually in this case, this rate limiter, what would happen, since rate limiting is very fast, so circuit breaker would also not be triggered, right? Because it would get some values. Payment service is down and it is still down. It is not giving time for circuit breaker to fail. That is the problem. Let's say we are getting this user this 4 to 9 request. Now server is up and running. What happened to the server? It is started, right? Why it is not taking the request? Yeah. So the problem is, guys, this rate limiting is done. Why? Because it is too fast. Actually, you can see refresh period is when 10 seconds and the time duration is 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds, it should again write, and for 5 requests it should fail. After 5 requests, the rate limiting should start, right? But it is failing on the first one only. So this is the case. Actually, you can play with the configuration. Actually, just here I wanted to show you the rate limiting, like rate limiting is working. Okay, so I hope you got the concept. Like in this video we touched only retry, how retry works, what are the different ways or levels on which retry fallback method can be written, and then rate limiter in a very short time in action we saw. Cool. And for this circuit breaker we have seen in a previous video, so you go and look for the circuit breaker video, that would help you a lot. The same things are here only. If I would close this edge service, here it is. If I close this retry service, okay, then you can see the fallback. Here you can see the circuit breaker state also, from open to half open, how everything is going to do. You can do that. Cool. So just go to that video and you will understand everything. So right now I'm closing this video because we have covered retry and rate limiter. And for circuit breaker you can go there, and if some more